For centuries, the Church had survived by knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. That morning, silence reached its limit. As Pope Leo XIV stood before the assembled cardinals, tradition gave way not to rebellion, but to responsibility. What he carried into that room was not a challenge to faith, but an invitation to expand it. The truth he revealed would not weaken belief. It would complete it. Everything about the consistory hall reinforced that expectation. Marble columns rose with unbroken confidence. Crimson drapes absorbed sound and dissent alike. Each cardinal sat precisely where tradition dictated, papers aligned, hands folded, eyes forward. This was a room designed to prevent surprises. And yet, before a single word was spoken, several men sensed that something had already gone wrong. It wasn't fear, or not yet. It was pressure. A subtle tightening in the chest, as if the space itself were holding its breath. A few cardinals shifted in their seats. One noticed the Swiss guard standing more rigidly than usual, fingers resting closer to steel than ceremony required. No one spoke of it. No one needed to. Then the doors opened. Pope Leo XIV entered without hesitation, but without ease. His pace was measured, restrained, as though each step carried more weight than the last. His expression revealed nothing familiar, no warmth, no fatigue, no visible strain, yet his eyes unsettled the room before he reached the dais. Conversation faded. Movement stopped. And when he arrived at his chair, he did not take it. The absence of that single, expected motion rippled through the hall. Sitting was not a courtesy. It was a signal. It meant continuity, control, obedience to form. By remaining standing, Leo disrupted more than protocol. He disrupted the unspoken agreement that this meeting would remain safely contained. In moments like these, the Church's greatest strength becomes visible. Not its doctrine, not its power, but its silence. Silence preserves order. Silence protects belief. Silence allows history to be managed. But silence, Leo understood, has limits. What he was about to reveal did not begin that morning. It did not begin with him. And it could no longer remain buried beneath stone, tradition, or fear. The story of how the Church arrived at this moment, of what had been hidden, guarded, and delayed, began long before the doors of the consistory hall closed. Quick moment, subscribe now. It helps the channel grow and guarantees you never miss the next release. Long before Pope Leo XIV stood without sitting. Long before silence became a liability. The Vatican that morning moved with its usual precision. Bells rang on schedule. Corridors echoed with familiar footsteps. Clerics exchanged ritual greetings beneath frescoed ceilings that had watched empires rise and decay without comment. On the surface, nothing had shifted. But beneath that calm, something old had stirred. The consistory hall had been prepared since before dawn. Assistants aligned documents to exact margins. Seating was arranged according to rank, geography, and centuries of unchallenged hierarchy. Each detail reinforced the same unspoken truth: order was not optional here. It was sacred. Cardinals entered in measured succession, robes whispering softly against the marble floor. Some reviewed briefing notes. Others closed their eyes briefly in prayer. The meeting's agenda, routine diplomatic considerations, internal administrative updates, ceremonial confirmations, had been circulated and approved weeks earlier. Nothing unscheduled was meant to occur in this room. Nothing ever did. And yet, as the hall filled, an unease settled that had no obvious source. Cardinal Reyes felt it first, not as fear, but as imbalance. He adjusted his glasses and glanced toward the far wall, where sunlight filtered through high windows in pale shafts. The light seemed thinner than usual, as if reluctant to enter fully. Across the aisle, Cardinal Okafor noticed the same thing and frowned, though he could not have said why. The Swiss guards lining the chamber stood at attention, but their posture betrayed alertness beyond ceremony. Hands rested closer to halberds. Eyes tracked movement more carefully. One guard swallowed hard, then steadied himself, as though bracing against a chill that did not exist. No one spoke of it. To acknowledge discomfort in a place like this was to invite disorder. When the doors finally opened, the room had already grown quiet. Pope Leo XIV entered alone. He did not pause at the threshold. He did not acknowledge the room with the customary nod. His pace was deliberate, neither rushed nor serene, measured, as though calibrated against an internal clock only he could hear. His face revealed nothing extraordinary. No anger. No exhaustion. No visible strain. But his eyes carried an intensity that unsettled even those who had known him for decades. It was not the gaze of a man burdened by politics. It was the gaze of someone carrying weight that could not be shared. As he reached the dais, every cardinal rose. The air itself seemed to tighten, sound collapsing inward as if absorbed by the walls. Then Leo stopped. And remained standing. The absence of movement struck harder than a raised voice ever could. Chairs remained empty. Hands hovered, uncertain. Tradition demanded he sit. It marked the beginning of governance, the continuation of control. Standing meant interruption. Standing meant divergence. "My brothers," Leo said at last, his voice calm and even, "today's meeting will not proceed as scheduled." The words did not echo. They settled. A murmur rippled through the hall, restrained but unmistakable. Cardinal Alvarez leaned forward slightly, ready to interject, but Leo lifted a hand, not sharply, not dismissively. Gently. Firmly. "This is not a matter of agenda," Leo continued. "Nor is it a matter of doctrine." He paused, allowing the weight of that distinction to register. "What I bring before you today is not instruction," he said. "It is truth." Silence followed, not the comfortable silence of ritual, but the strained stillness of anticipation. Several cardinals exchanged glances. Truth was a dangerous word in rooms built to manage interpretation. From the folder in his hands, Leo removed a single sheet of parchment. It was old, older than any document normally permitted beyond the archives. The edges were frayed. The ink had faded into shades of brown and ash. This was not a copy. It was not a reproduction. It was original. For more than a century, Leo said, this message has been passed privately from pope to pope. It was never recorded. Never catalogued. Never meant for public knowledge. He looked up, meeting their eyes one by one. Until now. Cardinal Reyes felt his pulse quicken. Leo began to read. The parchment spoke of signs, not spectacles, not miracles meant for crowds, but disturbances subtle enough to be dismissed, yet consistent enough to be undeniable. It warned of a moment when the world would continue unaltered on the surface while something irreversible shifted beneath it. And it issued a single, unforgiving condition. When the signs return, silence from the shepherds becomes betrayal. The reaction was immediate. Some cardinals leaned back, arms folding defensively. Others whispered prayers under their breath. One shook his head, already preparing objections. The word betrayal lingered like a blade suspended midair. Leo allowed the unrest to grow. Then he spoke again. Last night, he said, the signs returned. A few scoffed quietly. Others stiffened. Leo described the hours before dawn with unnerving precision. Lights flickering across the apostolic palace, not sporadically, but in unison. Objects trembling without vibration or cause. A presence that could not be seen or heard, yet was known with absolute certainty. It did not speak to me, Leo said. It spoke through me. The words landed heavily. It delivered one message, he continued. Now begins what was delayed. Voices rose at once. Questions. Objections. Accusations framed as concern. Suggestions of exhaustion, stress, the burden of office. Leo listened without interruption, allowing fear to clothe itself in reason. Then he spoke a single word. Enough. The sound cut cleanly through the chamber. Silence returned, immediate, unnatural, absolute. Leo did not raise his voice again. He laid out the corroboration calmly. Priests in distant wings of the Vatican reporting identical stillness at the same moment. Candles extinguishing themselves without wind. Swiss guards are collapsing after sensing an icy presence pass through sealed corridors. And finally, a painting in Leo's private chapel shifting on its mount, precisely when the presence delivered its message. No one spoke. Because no one could. Then the doors of the consistory hall slammed shut. The sound reverberated like a verdict. Candles flared violently along one side of the room, flooding it with heat and light. On the other hand, flames dimmed and died, plunging marble and faces into cold shadow. The temperature split the chamber cleanly in two. Panic threatened to surface. But Leo understood. This was not a threat. It was a choice. And the question that hung in the divided air was no longer theoretical. Revelation or concealment? The question did not need to be spoken. It pressed against every man in the room, heavy as the cold shadow dividing the consistory hall. The presence lingered, unmistakable now. Not hostile. Not benevolent. Expectant. Cardinal Alvarez was the first to break. This cannot be allowed, he said, his voice sharp with restraint. If this is made public, if even a whisper escapes this room, the consequences will be immeasurable. Heresy spreads faster than truth, another added. Faith fractures when certainty dissolves. Governments will demand answers we cannot give, said Cardinal Okafor. And when we fail to give them, the Church will lose authority it may never reclaim. The arguments overlapped, urgent and defensive. Panic disguised itself as prudence. Each objection carried the same undercurrent: control. Leo listened without interruption. He felt the pressure building again, not from the cardinals, but from the presence itself. It was no longer patient. The air vibrated faintly, as if the stone beneath their feet were listening. Delay is betrayal. The words from the parchment returned with clarity that left no room for negotiation. Leo understood then what the others could not, or would not. Silence was no longer neutral. He stepped forward, crossing the invisible line between warmth and cold. The temperature equalized instantly, as though the room itself responded to the motion. "My brothers," Leo said, his voice steady, "this choice was never ours to postpone." The arguing stopped. "We have guarded the truth before," he continued. "We have buried it, deferred it, wrapped it in ritual and called it protection. But protection has an expiration date." A few cardinals shook their heads. One whispered a prayer. Another stared at the floor, already knowing. "The longer we conceal this," Leo said, "the greater the betrayal becomes, not of doctrine, but of creation itself." The presence pressed closer. Leo drew a breath. "I choose revelation." The effect was immediate. The pressure vanished, releasing the air in a rush that felt like the room exhaling for the first time in centuries. The doors of the consistory hall unlocked on their own with a sound like stone surrendering to time. Then the marble beneath Leo's feet changed. Light bled upward from the floor, thin at first, then coalescing into lines, curved, interlocking, ancient. A symbol formed, glowing softly, neither harsh nor blinding. It was unfamiliar, yet every man in the chamber recognized it without understanding how. It was not learned. It was remembered. No record of it existed in doctrine. No archive held its likeness. And yet its meaning was instinctive. This was the mark of disclosure. This, Leo said quietly, is why the silence ended. He turned before anyone could object. "Come with me," he said. "Only those willing to see." After a moment's hesitation, a small group followed, men bound not by consensus, but by the knowledge that refusal would no longer protect them. The corridors beneath the Vatican were older than memory. Leo led them away from light and ornament, past sealed passageways known only to a handful of popes across centuries. The air grew colder with every step. The stone changed, less refined, more deliberate. Symbols appeared along the walls, carved deep and worn smooth by time, predating Christian iconography by millennia. "This place does not exist," Cardinal Reyes whispered. Leo did not turn. It was never meant to. They descended deeper still. The apostolic palace, Leo said, was not built upon this chamber. The realization struck them one by one. It was built around it. They reached a vast stone door embedded directly into the bedrock. No hinges. No handles. No visible mechanism. The same symbol that had appeared in the consistory hall was carved into its surface, faintly luminous even now. Leo stepped forward. He did not hesitate. A word rose to his lips, ancient, unfamiliar, and yet wholly known. He spoke it without knowing how he knew it. The stone responded. The door opened without sound. Beyond it lay a chamber unlike anything the church had ever acknowledged. The walls curved inward, not constructed so much as grown. At the center hovered a crystalline sphere, alive with swirling fog that shifted as though aware of their presence. The air hummed. Leo approached. When his hand touched the surface, the chamber reacted as a single organism. Light pulsed. Stone vibrated. The fog within the sphere coalesced, forming depth, movement, intention. Then the first voice spoke. Not aloud. Not silently. It spoke into understanding. Creation was not solitary. Humanity had not emerged unseen. In the beginning, there were witnesses, beings of another realm, neither angels nor gods, formed to observe, to shape, to guide alongside the Creator. They did not rule. They did not replace. They watched. And when humanity proved fragile, fearful of the vastness of its own origin, the truth was not erased. It was hidden. Guarded until the moment readiness replaced innocence. Now, the veil has thinned. Now, the delay ended. The first voice issued its final command with absolute clarity. The shepherd must speak before dawn. No debate followed. Because time itself seemed to compress around the words. As Leo withdrew his hand, the chamber dimmed, the fog settling back into stillness. The door began to close of its own accord, sealing the truth once more, not in secrecy, but in trust. They ascended in silence. Above them, something was already changing. And dawn was approaching far too quickly. They ascended without speaking. The corridors felt narrower on the return, as though the Vatican itself were adjusting, stone compressing around a truth that no longer fit neatly beneath it. No one asked questions. No one offered prayers. Each cardinal carried the same weight now, though none bore it comfortably. As they emerged into the upper levels, the first sign escaped containment. A low hum rolled through the basilica, barely audible but felt in the chest. The lights along the nave flickered once, then steadied into a blue glow, soft and unearthly, illuminating the stone as if revealing details long overlooked. Guards froze in place. Clergy halted mid-step. Somewhere, glass chimed faintly, responding to a vibration no instrument could measure. Leo stopped. Above the altar, the air distorted. Lines of light traced themselves slowly, deliberately, forming the same ancient symbol, vast, luminous, unmistakable. It did not burn. It did not blind. It simply existed, suspended above the heart of the church for anyone present to see. Whispers spread before orders could. Phones were raised without permission. Cameras activated without instruction. The veil, once carefully managed, thinned in full view of the faithful. "This is already beyond us," Cardinal Okafor said, his voice tight. Another grasped Leo's sleeve. "Holy Father, please, this can still be contained." A statement. A delay. We can frame this as a vision, a symbolic event. Leo turned to face them. Containment ended beneath the stones, he said calmly. What you are seeing now is a consequence. They moved quickly then, through halls filling with murmurs, past aides pale with confusion, toward the balcony overlooking St. Peter's Square. Outside, the sky remained dark, but the air vibrated with anticipation. Crowds had begun to gather. No announcement had been made. No summons has been issued. And yet people arrived, drawn by instinct, by rumor, by the inexplicable sense that something was unfolding whether they were present or not. Cameras lined the perimeter. Broadcast vans idled. Red lights blinked on across lenses, syncing not by coordination, but coincidence. Behind Leo, the resistance surged one final time. Governments will demand control, Cardinal Alvarez said urgently. They will fear what they cannot define. Faith will fracture, another pleaded. People need certainty, not expansion. Leo listened. Then he nodded. Yes, he said. Some will panic. Some will resist. Some will turn away. He looked out at the square. But chaos, he continued, is survivable. He turned back, his gaze steady. Silence is not. The sky began to lighten at the horizon. Leo stepped forward. The square fell quiet as he appeared. No formal introduction preceded him. No anthem played. The cameras rolled because they were already rolling. The crowd stilled because something within them demanded attention. Leo rested his hands on the stone railing. My brothers and sisters, he began, his voice carrying without strain, for generations, the Church has spoken of creation as a moment witnessed only by God. A pause. Today, he said, I must tell you the truth we have guarded in silence. Behind him, some cardinals closed their eyes. Others stared at the sky. We were not alone in the beginning. The words did not thunder. They did not demand belief. They settled. Creation was witnessed, Leo continued. Guided. Observed by beings formed not to rule us, nor to replace God, but to stand beside the Creator in the shaping of existence. The symbol above the basilica pulsed faintly. This does not diminish faith, Leo said. It expands it. It does not reduce God's glory. It reveals its scale. As he spoke, the sky above St. Peter's shimmered, just once. A subtle ripple, like light passing through water. Not enough to explain. Too much to deny. Millions saw it. And then it faded. No fire. No sound. No further display. Just acknowledgement. Leo finished without flourish. Truth does not destroy faith, he said quietly. It completes it. He stepped back. For a long moment, no one moved. The square remained silent, not stunned, not afraid. Irreversibly changed. Behind him, the cardinals understood what had been crossed. There would be no return to the careful management of mystery. No restoration of curated silence. Dawn broke over the city. The world did not end. But it would never again be as small. Because silence had once protected the Church. Now, it would have destroyed it. And revelation, though costly, though uncertain, had become the only path forward. Before you go, subscribe, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and share your thoughts.